Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here as we start our unit on Romeo and Juliet. So, in order to break down the opening of Romeo and Juliet, it's going to be helpful for us to kind of back up just a little bit. We did not cover Unit 4 because of the coronavirus school shutdown. So, I want to go back to just one particular activity in Unit 4, which is the unit on poetry. Much of Shakespeare's language, even in drama, is poetry, and it's written right into the story. And he opens Romeo and Juliet with what is known as a Shakespearean sonnet. So we're going to use Springboard activity 4.9. And if you need to pause and open that up on your computer, you can do so. So what we're going to do is just the first bullet under the learning targets. So we're going to examine the structure of a sonnet to infer the relationship between structure and meaning. So the Shakespearean sonnet, and in fact, most poetry, the structure really enhances or helps the reader to determine the meaning and understand transitions and the flow of a particular topic or story. So, what I want to look at is first the literary terms in the box on the left. So, if you look in the yellow box, there are 3 terms that are going to help us understand how the sonnet is structured. So the first term that you can see here is quatrain. A quatrain is a 4-line stanza in a poem. And basically a stanza is a lot like a paragraph. So poetry, we use verse and stanzas. In other kinds of writing, we use prose and therefore paragraphs. So a stanza with 4 lines is considered a quatrain. The next term we need to know is couplet. So a couplet is 2 consecutive lines. So 2 lines that are back to back that are part of verse and have end rhyme. So the very ending of each of the lines in a couplet rhymes, sounds the same. So the other thing about a couplet is that it usually expresses a complete unit of thought. So it has a real message to it just in those 2 lines. Now the last literary term is going to be a little bit more of a new concept if you haven't read Shakespeare before. Much of what Shakespeare writes is written in what's known as iambic pentameter. Now, this really is a mathematical term. Iambic pentameter, an iamb is a footstep. And if you think about how you walk, most people walk heel, toe, heel, toe. So it really has 2 beats to it. So an iamb really is 2. And then pentameter, just like with quatrain and couplet, you can probably figure out from the root word there, which is penta, which if you are familiar with math terms, is 5, right? And then of course, meter being the rhythm or the distance that you would travel with that sound. So iambic pentameter is 2 beats 5 times in the line. So it's really like a math problem. So I'm going to write this like a math problem. So you have an iamb, which is 2, and then you have pentameter, right, which is 5, and you have 2, and you do it 5 times, is really 10, and this is about the number of syllables. Syllables. All right, so it's a rhythmic pattern, 5 feet or units, each consisting of one unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. All right, so now we kind of know what the structure of a sonnet is and the vocabulary to discuss it. Let's take a look at a sonnet, one that's not from Romeo and Juliet. So when I look at the setting a purpose for reading, the first bullet there tells us to draw lines to separate the quatrains and the couplet. So to begin with, I'm going to draw a line after the first 4 lines, and then after the second 4 lines, and then after the third 4 lines. So let me go down here to the sonnet, turn on my marking pen, and I'm going to put a line after line 4. Oh, that's line 3. Let's erase that. Sorry. After line 4. Okay, and then I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, after line 8, 1, 2, 3, 4. And after line 12. And then you can see I'm left with the couplet. Okay. All right, so we have 3 quatrains and a couplet, which we can all add up is 14 lines. So a Shakespearean sonnet always has 14 lines. So that is the basic length of a sonnet. All right, so I'm going to go back up here. Whoops. I'm going to go back up, take a look at what we need to do next. So our next step is going to be circle unknown words or phrases. So I'd like you to do that as we look at it. We'll determine kind of what some of those mean and how they help us understand the meaning of the sonnet. We might be able to get some of them from context clues, word parts, or maybe we need to look in a dictionary. And then we're going to mark the rest of the poem's rhyme scheme and note its regularity. All right, so rhyming is all about the end sound. So we will notice that they've already begun marking it for us. So if I take a look, I can see that we have day and May. And we can see they've marked it A and A. So every other line in this quatrain is going to rhyme. So day and May. Now we look at the next one, temperate and date. On the surface, it doesn't really seem like those are rhyming words, but during Shakespeare's time, with the original pronunciation over 400 years ago and the British accent, it was probably pronounced temperate and date, and they would have rhymed. So temperate and date. Now we need to continue the rhyme scheme, and let's mark it up and make sure it all rhymes. So I'm going to look shines, and I see shines should rhyme with, the next one, declines. Shines and declines. So I'm going to mark this C, just like shines. And then I have dimmed and untrimmed. You've probably already figured out if I have A, B, A, B, and then C, then I'm going to call this one D and D. So C, D, C, D. This is like when you were young and you used to, line up your M&Ms and you'd go blue, yellow, or brown, green, and you'd create patterns, right? So we're just looking for the pattern of the rhyme. So in the third quatrain, I have fade and shade. So let's see, I have C, D, C, D. So I'm going to call those E. E. And then I have, Shakespeare loves to do this. If he needs to throw out a syllable because he has too many, he would say oast. So he took out the E there, a vowel. Often in their pronunciation, he would shorten words the same way we do. We make contractions out of words like you are. We say your, and we use an apostrophe. It's a contraction. So he has a contraction here that's pronounced oast, and then also grossed. And I'm going to call those F. And now, by definition, we know that our couplet is 2 consecutive lines of verse with end rhyme. So these 2 lines, by definition, have to rhyme at the end. And C and the, they do. And you've already figured out, because you're following along, that we're going to call those G and G. All right, so now we understand the structure, 14 lines in 3 quatrains and a couplet with a rhyme pattern that is specific to the sonnet. Now I just want to check that iambic pentameter. So I'm going to go back here. I know that my iambic pentameter is a rhythm pattern, 5 feet with an iamb, which is 2 steps, is 10 syllables. Unstressed followed by stressed. So I'm going to take a look at this, and I'm going to do, this is how you mark an unstressed syllable, is with a little U. Let me change my color here. Make that a little bit yellow. An unstressed syllable, we do with like a little U. So I'm going to do like sonnet. I know that when I say the word sonnet, I put an accent over the beginning syllable. Well, that's really hard to see. Let's change the color on that to blue. So I say sonnet, right? So that's a stressed syllable and an unstressed syllable. It's a lot like iambic pentameter is very much like Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham. So if you're familiar with that, most of you probably are. Green eggs and ham goes like this. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them. Sam, I am. So it's very rhythmic. An unstressed syllable, short, and then a harder syllable, an accented syllable. Like that. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? So, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? And I count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I do have 10 syllables per line. And I'm going to do that. Usually I use my fingers just like I'm adding with math. Thou art more lovely and more temperate. That's 10. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. Yep, another 10. And summer's lease hath all too short a date. So 10 syllables in every line. And I guarantee you that were I to continue down through the entire poem, it would have 10 syllables in every line. So the Shakespearean sonnet is very mathematical. Shakespeare was very specific about the structure and the rhythm, and it governs the meaning of the poem, which we will break down in just a moment. So we're going to read it really quickly. I'm going to read it. Let's start with the About the Author box. And then we're just going to go through the meaning of this one very quickly. And I really want to get to the other sonnet that is the focus of this lesson, and that's the prologue to Romeo and Juliet. So first about Shakespeare. Little is known about the early life of William Shakespeare, who lived from 1564 through 1616, except that he was born and grew up in Stratford-upon-Avon in England. He is considered one of the greatest playwrights who ever lived. In addition to 37 plays, comedies, tragedies, and histories, he also wrote a series of 154 sonnets in a style that has become known as the Shakespearean Sonnet, which we just broke down. And actually, if you like math, the sonnet might be one of your favorite types of poetry. They are really fun to challenge yourself to write. All right, now, if we go back to our learning target, we can remind ourselves that what we were going to do is examine the structure of a sonnet in order to infer the relationship between structure and meaning. Now, each quatrain, just like when you write a paragraph, typically has its own topic. So I'm going to look at the first 4 lines of this poem. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's leaf hath all too short a date. So this writer, this speaker, is talking about it to a person. Would you like me to compare you to summer? Because I think you're prettier, and I think you're calmer, more moderate, more steady. Yeah, in May, there are rough winds, and summer is short. So are you sure you want me to compare you to summer? Because it has all these problems, right? So in this first quatrain, he is questioning. He's actually speaking to the reader and questioning whoever this is written for. Now, if I look at the second quatrain, it should have a different topic. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. So this is a summary of summer, all the problems that summer has. So, sometimes the sun is too hot, and sometimes there's something that causes the goldenness of the sun to be dim, maybe clouds or something else that causes the sun to be hidden. And then sometimes beauty comes away from beauty. So in Shakespeare's time, the word fair would mean beauty. Sometimes fair from fair declines. The beauty of a beautiful person goes away. And by chance, it might just be because of chance. Maybe you fall and cut your face and you have a deformity, or maybe just by chance something happens that causes the beauty to go away. Or maybe it's just nature's course, time. Maybe time has given you wrinkles or caused you to age and your skin has changed. So things change over time. Other things can influence them. So this is about how beauty can begin to go away. Things can make beauty go away. Now, the third quatrain should be about even another topic. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. Now, when I look at this one, I know because of the word thy that we've come back to talking about a person. And now we're talking about the reader. And he's saying, the beauty that is your summer is never going to fade away. It's going to be eternal. And you're never going to lose possession of your beauty. You own it. It's yours, and it's going to stay with you. You're going to own it forever. Death has nothing on you. You're not going to be able to look like you are next to dying. And because in eternal lines to time thou growest. Now let's look at this one. Lines has a double meaning here. So what I know about this, lines, and I'm going to go to yellow here. This word lines has a double meaning. Eternal lines to time thou growest. Lines means not just a timeline and your beauty will go on forever on the timeline, but also lines of poetry that have been written. Because I have written about you, you will be remembered forever. Your beauty will exist forever because I wrote about it. So in the beginning, we have it. It's about the speaker questioning the reader. In the second quatrain, it's about what's wrong with beauty. Beauty has problems. And the third quatrain is really about the reader and what the reader is going to possess forever because she's been written about. Now, the last couplet, by definition, should have its own meaning. So let's take a look. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. So I have to look at that word this, and I know that this is the poem. The poem gives life to the subject, the reader. And so long as men are alive to read the poem, this person that he has written about will always have their beauty and will always have their life because he has immortalized it in Sonnet 18. All right, so that's a lot to take in, and I know you're still with me. So we are going to take what we just did, and we're going to apply it to the prologue of Romeo and Juliet. So in order to do that, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go to Unit 5, and we're going to take a look at Activity 5.3. A sonnet sets the stage. And I want to look at, I'm going to erase all of this stuff. I want to look at how the prologue to Romeo and Juliet is a sonnet. All right, so Activity 5.3, we are going to analyze the prologue to Romeo and Juliet to preview and make inferences about the play. There are two more vocabulary words here, drama and tragedy, that I will allow you to read on your own. And we are not going to do the third one, creating a tableau. We're just going to look at the sonnet and the prologue, and we're going to take a look at how the structure works in order to enhance the meaning. So in order to know what a prologue is, I'm going to look at the word connections box on the left. So the red box there, word connections. The word prologue comes from the Greek word prologos, containing the prefix pro, which means before, and the root logos, which means saying. So this literally translates to before the speech, or in our case, before the play. It's like a preview to a movie. In Shakespeare's day, a member of the chorus, so one of the actors who had a smaller part, would come out to the audience and introduce the play, tell them what they were about to see. It helped them, it gave them basically a roadmap of where they're headed. It's like the introduction to your essay. You tell them what you're going to tell them, and then you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them, right? That part would be called an epilogue, that part which comes at the end. So we're looking at the prologue, which is a Shakespearean sonnet. Let's check it. So I'm going to use my marking pen to check it. The first thing I'm looking for are quatrains. So I need to see, here's one quatrain, then 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's 2 quatrains. 1, 2, 3. Here's 3 quatrains. And I'm left with a couplet. Now what I need to do is check the rhyme scheme. They've already marked it here for me, A, B, A, B. And as before, some of these words may not look like love on the E rhyme, love and remove. In the original pronunciation, they very likely did rhyme. The O sound there was probably an a schwa sound, an love, and remove was probably pronounced remove. So love and remove would have rhymed. So it follows the rhyme scheme. It follows the line scheme with 14 lines. And then I just need to check, is it iambic pentameter? So those iambs, 2 footsteps in 5 paces. So 10 syllables per line. I'm going to count them. 2 households, both alike in dignity, is 10 syllables. And each line has 10 syllables. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of the lines here and help you analyze the meaning and paraphrase a little bit. And then I would like you to go through and see if you can determine what this prologue means and what this is telling us is going to happen in the story. So I'm going to read the whole thing first, and then I will go through the first quatrain. So this is the prologue from Romeo and Juliet, Act 1. 2 households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these 2 foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured piteous overthrows doth with their death bury their parents' strife. The fearful passage of their death-marked love, and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end naught could remove, is now the 2 hours traffic of our stage, the which if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. Alrighty, so let's take a look at just the first quatrain. So the first 4 lines. 2 households, both alike in dignity. So households, what's in a household? Well, a household consists of members. So members of what? Members of a family. So we have 2 families, and it says they're both alike in dignity. So I don't know what dignity is, but I know that it's blue here, which means there's a definition. So over here, I look in the margin. Dignity means rank. So that's kind of, social rank, social status. So they're both kind of the same high class, wealthy, powerful families. So we have 2 families, and they're both rich, and they're both powerful. Then the next line, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. Well, okay, so where we lay the scene, that sounds like setting. And Verona, it's capitalized, proper nouns, probably a place. Beautiful, fair is beautiful. So in beautiful Verona, where our story is set. So we have characters, setting. Oh, now we have conflict. Look at the third line. From ancient grudge, break to new mutiny. We know grudge is when you hold a grudge against someone. How long have these families held grudges against each other? Well, it's ancient, so since forever. And now it has broken into something new, a mutiny. So I look again, it's blue. So I look down and I see, let me get rid of that a mutiny is a rebellion against authority. So I have a rebellion against authority. So someone not in authority is fighting out against the rules or against the parents or against something. And so we have an old grudge that breaks into a new fight. And then this last line in the first quatrain is really the hardest one because we have to really kind of think about what we mean by civil here. Civil really is, when you behave in a civil manner, you're being good, you're following the rules, you're doing the right thing. So these good people, these people who do the right thing, it says where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. So even the people who follow the rules and do the good things, there's going to be bloodshed, and the blood is going to be on their hands. The blood's going to be on everyone's hands. So something bad is going to happen. It's going to cause bloodshed, and we're all going to have blood on our hands. Everyone in the story, even if they were a good person, they followed the rules, they're still going to be to blame for what happens. So we have kind of set out the components of our story. So we have characters, we have setting, we have conflict, and we even have a resolution here that's been laid out for us. All right, so that's the first one, is really setting the foundation. The first quatrain sets the foundation of the story. And then in the second quatrain, it has a different meaning. Okay, so it's going to give us a little bit about the plot. Okay, so from forth the fatal loins of these 2 foes. So we're going to have to look up what fatal loins are over there. A pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured piteous overthrows doth with their death bury their parents' strife. So that's plot. Okay? It tells us what's going to happen. In that third quatrain, the fearful passage of the death-marked love and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end not could remove, is now the 2 hours traffic of our stage. So this one is really, the topic is kind of telling us, if this hadn't happened, then the fight wouldn't have ended, and we're going to show you how all of this unfolds on the stage. That's what we're doing here. So it's saying, we're going to act this out for you and show it to you, the 2 hours traffic of our stage. And then the couplet at the end shifts completely. And now we have new pronouns, the which if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. So they've taken themselves and now they're addressing directly each individual in the audience and saying, pay attention, but If somehow you didn't get what I just told you, don't worry, because we're going to work hard to fix that and help you see all the glorious details of our story. So I would like you to go through and really break down each line and paraphrase it for yourself to see if you can figure out the meaning. It looks hard, it sounds hard, but when you take it word by word and phrase by phrase, then line by line and quatrain by quatrain and couplet, you really will have an understanding of what this sonnet is telling us. All right, you guys, I'm going to leave it there. There are some other activities on your agenda, so check your agenda and move on to the next step. Thank you so much for hanging in there and sticking with me. Paraphrase those lines, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.